I want to say it was around 8 o'clock. So he kind of looked up and then he saw the moon and he said, you know what? Why don't we call it Crescent Urology? And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And so I asked Peter, I was like, do you know the Latin, root meaning of crescent? And he's like, no, what is it? I said, growing. And I said, that's perfect. We're building a practice that we're growing. Running your own business is not easy, but that's why you have to have an entrepreneurial heart and you got to have an amount of risk taking. And so what I always tell myself is every morning I wake up, do I just want to be living or do I want to live? And I told myself I wanted to live. Whatever you decide to do, very first thing is ask yourself, is my heart going to be in it? Because if it is, you're going to find a way to get there. Trust me on it. I never took any formal business classes. I had no idea. But you know what I did? I mapped it out. I asked people who had already gone through it so that I don't make the same mistake.
We gon' do it like it's priceless. Take it to the moon. Priceless. One day will be soon. Like it's priceless.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of D-Talk with Dr. Pham. So disclaimer, everything I talk about in here is my opinions. Don't self-diagnose. If you think you have it, then seek professional help. And then also, please click the subscribe button so that I know people are listening and so that I can continue to do this. So there was a viewer who basically was interested in how did Crescent Urology Institute became Crescent Urology Institute and why the name Crescent and all that. And so I figure, let's break away from our normal conversation and talk about how Crescent Urology actually came to be. So back in September 2019, I didn't want to be a revolving door surgeon. I always believed that, jack of all trade, master of none. And so I wanted to build a place that the urologists there, we can all do general urology so that we can cover each other, when someone's on vacation or whatnot. But I wanted all of us to kind of specialize in something that, that we think we're good at. Hence, I mainly only do penile reconstruction in children and adults. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that actually operate on children and adult in Houston for genital reconstruction. And so Crescent Urology actually used to be not called Crescent Urology. The original name was supposed to be Pham Urology, and we had the logo and everything. And so this was the logo. And if you notice, basically it's two P's and a U. So this was supposed to represent the kidneys and then the, kind of like the urinary bladder and then Pham Urology. And the reason why was that one of my partner, who's also my younger brother, he was gonna, after he finished his residency in WashU in St. Louis, he was gonna come back and join me. And so, but at the time, and so that's how Pham Urology was born. And then there was one of my other partner named Peter, who I known since residency. Like I see him like a brother. And so he decided to leave his workplace also to join Brian and myself. But since, his last name is Hin, H-I-N-H, and so we decided that, well, it kind of doesn't make sense to call it Pham Urology for two reasons. One is I didn't want Pham Urology to be attached to me, meaning that, basically, let's say I retire or whatever. I don't want the name attached to me where basically, oh, if Dr. Pham's not there, that means Crescent Urology Institute's no longer good. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to change the name. And how we got Crescent was that I'll never forget this. I met Peter because he texted me. He's like, "Hey, can we go out for a drink?" And so I don't drink, obviously. I have that Asian gene. If I drink, I get all red and sick, and ugh, no, thank you. I drink even a little Coronita, which is like tiny, and I'll be sick the next day. Basically, I told Peter, I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I asked him, like, what, like, did you want to talk to me, or like, we're just going out for a drink? He's like, "No, just go out for a drink." And I said, "Okay." And this was about 1 year before Brian came. And so Peter said he did a lot of soul searching and all that. And he said, I want to join you guys. I want to, I want to become a part of Fam Urology. But his last name isn't Fam. And also I didn't want the name to be attached just to me. Kind of like when you think of Tesla, you think of Elon Musk. And so it just they're synonymous, right? So Fam Urology will be synonymous to me, which is what I don't want. And so I asked Peter, so we were trying to come up with names, and believe me, it's hard. Names, logo, all that. And so Peter kind of, I want to say it was around 8 o'clock. So he kind of looked up and then he saw the moon and he said, "You know what? Why don't we call it Crescent Urology?" And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And so I asked Peter, I was like, "Do you know the Latin, root meaning of crescent?" And he's like, "No, what is it?" I said, "Growing." And I said, that's perfect. We're building a practice that we're growing. And, thank God in a very short span, we were able to buy a 13,000 square foot building. And, we're hopefully it'll be up and running at the end of the year where we'll have clinic and one OR in there so that we don't have to travel around to operate and stuff. But, of course, we never saw any of this coming. And so I went to try to buy the domain Crescent Urology, but there's a Crescent Urology, I believe, up in New Jersey. And so I reached out to him a couple times, never really got a response on to see like, hey, can I buy that domain? Because they did have like crescenturology.net and, like dot other stuff. But what I really wanted was .com. And so that's how I was like, I added the word institute on there. And then basically that's how Crescent Urology Institute came about. And, it's just such a Cinderella story because, running your own business is not easy, but that's why you have to have an entrepreneurial heart and you got to have an amount of risk taking. And so what I always tell myself is every morning I wake up, do I just want to be living or do I want to live? And I told myself I wanted to live. And that's what my partner Peter, that's how he came to the conclusion that, it's best that he join me. Now, it wasn't all rosy. It was a very tough first couple of years. If anyone ever knows somebody or if somebody who has ever started their own practice, you will know that it is not fun. I mean, I was having clinic on Saturdays. I mean, it was just it was exhausting. And at that time, Brian wasn't here yet, and so Peter and I were covering calls and it was like we were covering calls, 2 weeks at a time. And it was, oh my gosh, looking back, I don't know how I did it. But, when your back's to the wall or you're at the bottom, the only way to go is up. And so maybe that's why, the penis was meant for me is because my vision has always been the direction in life always needs to be up. No pun intended. So, but yeah, and so that's how Crescent Urology came about. And so Fam Urology is still active, but if you type in Fam Urology, it will redirect you to Crescent Urology. Now, Crescent Urology will be soon be a subsidiary of a bigger parent company, but we'll leave that out for now. But that's pretty much how Crescent Urology came to be, was because I just did not believe in a model where patients are like going through revolving doors. That's just not good patient care. My philosophy has always been, quality over quantity. And if you always believe that quality is over quantity, then what is meant to be will be. So everything I predicted came true. We just give it our best, and eventually, through word of mouth, whatever it may be, patients will come to you. And so it took us a while to get the building going, just because of a lot of setbacks, and that's what I mean by it's just not easy. And so I think a lot of doctors find it easier to just rent a place and then just renovate that one space, and we didn't want that. We wanted a place of our own that that what we call central command, and then later on, franchising the name or having satellite clinics, those are all things that we can discuss later on. But right now, I think what we wanted was just a place that we can call home, that, we don't have to worry about getting rent, getting increased and this and that, and plus, it's built at to match what Crescent Urology is, which is not just the name, it's a lifestyle. And so the building, the architect drawing for the building is very cutting edge, and it's simple yet cutting edge. What I call the clean look. And so I can't wait until that opens, but with the permitting process and stuff, everything just moves at a pace of a snail. But so to answer, that one person's question, that's how Crescent Urology came to be, and that's how the name was chosen. And so, but yeah, and to this day, we still believe in quality over quantity. I would rather see less patients, but give them all the time they need, than try to stack a bunch of patients and just do everything. Like, I just believe you can never be good that way. The only way to be good is you have to focus on what you are good at and build on that skill. We don't need to do everything urology. We do most urological surgeries and non-surgical management. But like I tell my partners, we don't need to be a group that does every single urologic thing. What we need to be is a group that do not act like a revolving door surgeon. Number two, got to have very good bedside manners and customer service. And I told my partners, if we just do those three, patients will come. And so for in this episode, this is for any physician or just any business that you want to kind of, because there's nothing like being your own boss, right? But you have to have that lion heart, for lack of a better word, and you got to keep moving forward. And always remember, you'll trip and fall everywhere, but as long as you can get back up and keep it moving forward, then you will get where you need to go. I can promise you that. But if you trip and fall and you don't get yourself back up, then it'll never happen. And so now, I'm not saying just go out there and just do it. You kind of have to have a plan in place. But what I am getting at is, if your dream is to, whatever business it may be, but I'll just talk about the medical business. If your dream is to have your own clinic and your own surgery center and all that, then you can't look at what the end is going to be, because if you do that, it's going to scare you. What you need to look at is, okay, these are things that are in my control, because you can't change what you can't change, right? And so, but the only thing you can change is what is in your control. And don't think too much about, long term, like, is it going to work out? If you put in the work, it will work out. Edison once said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And that's so very true. I'm inspired to do this and do that and do that. But if I don't put the work in it, it'll never happen. And so I hope that this episode can help anybody who's trying to start their own business, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be medical. Is you got to have a certain amount of risk taking. And obviously, nothing is guaranteed, right? And so I hate to sound like a stockbroker, but, past performance does not equal, future returns, or does not guarantee future returns. However, if you don't take chances, then you'll always be stuck at go. And so in order to move forward, you have to just ask yourself, okay, how bad do I want to do what I want to do? Whatever that may be. Start a book, whatever, then next thing you have to do is kind of map it out. Okay, well, how exactly am I going to do this? And that's fairly easy. There's a lot of forums for pretty much any sort of business. And there's a lot of good free resources out there that you can turn to that can help you map out what it is that, all the steps that you need to do. And then what you do is you take it one day at a time, and you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. But you always got to remember, when you trip and fall, the key here is, did you pick yourself back up? Because if you didn't pick yourself back up, well, then you're going to be stuck, And so there's been many times that I have failed when I started Crescent Urology. Lots of time. And lost a lot of money from starting it and all that. But, thank God, I kept at it. I just wouldn't give up. And so obviously now it's thriving. And so, that's why I'm involved in like other stuff. But what I'm getting at is, there's a lot of people who are afraid to take that jump or leap of faith or whatnot. But especially in the economy that we are right now, where, the stock markets and all that may be at an all-time high, but really that benefits the upper class and then the elites. But for the majority of us, it really doesn't benefit us that much, because we're just still trying to put food on the table, just paying for basic necessity, especially with inflation and all that. The dollar is just not worth what it used to be. And all of that's scary. And here's a perfect example. Change Healthcare, which is a clearinghouse that processes, I want to say, around 70% of our claims. So, after I see a patient or after I operate, or my partner, same difference, then we would submit the claim to the clearinghouse. And then the insurance would then pay us through the clearinghouse. And so Change Healthcare got hacked, I think, early March. And I don't know if it's a rumor or not, but apparently, the rumor is, but it may be true. They got cyber hacked and basically had to pay a ransom of like 22 million or something. But don't quote me on that. That's just what I read in the news. I'm not sure. And so that's scary. Like, where you can get the money to pay your staff and this and that. So those those were scenarios I never even took. But I always made sure to have enough reserve, where basically COVID opened my eyes a lot, where basically anything can happen that will grind your business to a halt. So you need to have at least some sort of cash reserve. And so one point that I like to point out is, don't try to grow too fast. Just, I hate to compare it to the tortoise and the hare, but slow and steady will always win the race, and so when you go in too fast and you drain all your capital, it's not good, right? And so just look at Fisker. They just recently slashed what 24,000 off of their SUV to try to avoid bankruptcy, and so last thing you want is to basically invest all this time and money and the emotional roller coaster of going up and down, of starting your own business. And so, but I can tell you the joy that you get of cultivating it is just, you can't put a price on that. And that's what I call, live. Do I just want to live, or, do I just want to be living, or do I want to live? And if you want to live and you want to start your own business, that's what I would do. You map it out. Well, first you have to ask yourself, am I ready for this? And do I have reserves in the event that, let's say, the business fails? Do I have reserve that I can sustain for 2 to 3 months while I see if I can rejuvenate the business, or, go back to working your daytime job, whatever it may have been. And so, because, with COVID, a lot of people ended up starting their own business because they were stuck at home and just, couldn't go to work, but they still have to generate revenue to put food on the table and all that. And so I know, and I know now right now it's a tough economic times, because of all the inflation and all that, supply chain issues. I mean, the world's on fire right now, but see, those are all things that is outside of your control. And so what is inside, what you can control is how are you going to proceed? And so dreaming is one thing, putting it into action is another. And so my advice to any new entrepreneurs or all that is you got to have a little bit of a risk tolerance, right? Because if you know that, okay, if I do this business, I'm going to succeed and I'm going to make my money back in 2 years, well, then everybody would open their own business. But that's just simply not true, right? And so what is true is that you have to believe in something and you have to believe in yourself. So the most important thing is you gotta believe in yourself, and you also need to be realistic. Like, for instance, I'll never be an Elon Musk, and I'm okay with that. I'll never be a Bill Gates, and I'm okay with that. I'll never be the Oracle of Omaha, which is Warren Buffett. I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, it's not money that will bring you happiness. What will bring you happiness is the satisfaction of knowing that you did what you wanted to do, whatever that may be. It may be writing that book. It may be starting a nonprofit. It may be whatever, starting a bakery. It doesn't matter, right? And so to a certain extent, money doesn't really buy you happiness. And money has to be calculated in it, right? Because you got to have money to start the business, and you got to have plan B, and plan B usually involves you got to have extra capital. And so, when you do something, you got to ask yourself, how passionate am I about this? Like, for instance, I am very passionate about machine learning and AI, but I'm not a coder. I know nothing about coding. So what I did was I just partner up with people who know about coding. And from there, we turn what was once a dream into reality. And, the AI company that we created, we have a couple products in the pipeline already that I've been testing in my clinic for the past couple of years, and we're going to license it out to other doctors' practices. Now, I won't get into the details what it does, because I really don't want people to steal ideas and stuff, and so, but we have some very exciting things, and to me, even if it doesn't pan out, I'll still be happy because I know that I tried and it just didn't work out. But from the start, I was already realistic that, okay, this may not work out, but life is boring for me if all I do is wake up and go operate. And so for me, my final medical project really is just to bring up this building and, and have the clinic in there with the OR. And then that would be my final medical project. Uh, because after that, I want to really focus on other things that I enjoy. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy surgery and all that, but at some point, it peaks, right? Once you reach a certain level of operating, it kind of peaks, and you try to find something new to kind of rejuvenate your mind per se. And so that's why I don't know if I can ever retire because I actually enjoy working, and so but yeah, through this episode, like I said, I really hope that whatever it is, whoever it is that wants to start something, and this is just speaking from how I chose to go the path I did, was I told myself, okay, one way or another, Crescent Urology is going to be born. And it didn't matter how many times I fell, I always got myself back up. And it doesn't matter if the revenue is in the red, I just kept going because I knew that at some point it will be in the black. And that's why I like my two partners, because they're kind of like me, they're willing to take risks, because if you don't take risk, then you'll never be able to do what you really want to do. Because I guarantee you, nobody really wants to wake up and go to work at 8 and leave at 5 for the man. I mean, just, or the woman. It just, I there may be some, so maybe I'll walk back that statement. There may be some people who just want 8 to 5, but I can tell you a lot of people I know, they want to start their own business. The problem is they don't know where to start. And so where to start is with social media, there's a lot of support groups that is specific to whatever it is you want to start, like a bakery store or whatnot, but you really have to sit down. And the very first thing you have to ask yourself is, am I going to be committed to it? If you are, then that's going to be your driving force. Just like with this podcast. When I started it, I was kind of nervous, but I told myself, okay, it's going to require me to take time to come here to record and do all that. But my mind was set that I wanted to educate patients about urologic issues and talk about trending topics. And so I think we would be going on our 7th month now or something like that. And the viewership has been very high, and I really appreciate everybody that did subscribe and watched it and all that, because that really means a lot to me. Because it means that whatever topic I am talking about, there are people out there who are finding it helpful or whatnot. So, but I just want to leave it at that. This episode, I kind of wanted just to answer the question of how did Crescent even came to be, and the entrepreneurial spirit that's what makes America great, right? Is you can reach for the stars, but you also need to be realistic. So, and realistic, what I mean by that is, don't expect to be an Elon Musk. Don't expect to be a Jeff Bezos. Don't expect to be, but for me, I wasn't born here, and I took civics class, so I know that I can't be president of the United States. But I don't want to be president of the United States anyways. I think all politicians are crooked. And I don't like crookedness. I fix crooked penis, and so, but I don't know how you fix crooked politicians. But anyways, that's another point. So I'll leave it with that. Whatever you decide to do, very first thing is ask yourself, is my heart gonna be in it? Because if it is, you're gonna find a way to get there. Trust me on it. I never took any formal business classes. I had no idea. But you know what I did? I mapped it out. I asked people who had already gone through it so that I don't make the same mistakes. And from there, that's how, and we're still learning to this day. And that's why I love the name Crescent. It's still beautiful because it really means growing. We're constantly growing. And Crescent Urology from New Jersey, if you're listening, I will pay you premium for crescenturology.com. But I'm still going to keep crescenturologyinstitute.com, but I would love to have crescenturology.com. So if you're listening up there in New Jersey, I'm willing to pay premium for that website. All right. So this is Dr. Pham signing out, but please subscribe. Let me know what you think, if you enjoy the episodes, and no topic is off the table. If there's any topics you guys like me to discuss, just send it in and we'll do it. You just put a comment, on whatever the topic may be, and we'll pick it up from there. All right. So once again, this is Dr. Pham signing off.
Priceless, take it to the moon. Priceless, one day will be soon. Like it's priceless.